Everybody, the American Space Museum. I'm Mark Marquette. We're so glad you're with us to stay curious today. Today we've got a mix of different things going on in space world today. We've got 3 astronauts born on December 28th today. And we're going to take you out to the Visitors Complex, where it was a very busy day at the Visitors Complex. More people than I've seen out there, and whoa, 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 whoa. Wait a minute, Marty. I'm not ready for that. Marty Winkle's moving me around here so we can see this guy, the second man to do the MMU untethered flight. Nobody remembers what the second person is to do anything. Of course, Bruce McCandless did the first. So see if you can figure out, and I'll move this way, Marty, who the second guy. And look at this gorgeous picture, and of course, the only border that matters, that thin blue line right there. So we're glad that you all are with us, staying curious today. The last few days of the year, we've got a great guest tomorrow, a young lady who's the barber and hairstylist at Kennedy Space Center. Diane Gibson. That's not Diane Gibson. I forgot her first name. Oh, Denise Gibson. Hi, Denise. She is a hairstylist at Kennedy Space Center, and she came up with a concept called moon water that you're going to wish you'd thought of this first. And don't even jump ahead of me. She's already working on Mars water. Okay, so we're going to have Denise Gibson here and enjoy a kind of offbeat kind of stay curious with the hairstylist barber out at Kennedy Space Center and all the famous heads of hair she's cut in the last 9 years and how the energy's gone up. You don't want to miss Denise Gibson tomorrow on Stay Curious. But today I went out with someone that's helping us on the board today, Connie McDaniel. She's learning the ropes from our Streamlabs expert, Marty Winkle, there, so we can give Marty some time. Both Connie and Marty are unbelievable volunteers here at the American Space Museum. You got to come and meet them if you haven't already. But we went out to see Fred Gregory, get his autograph, and oh my gosh, those of you that have been out to the Kennedy Visitors Complex, you would not believe how packed it was today. Many of you know, you can see this is about halfway through the line. Okay, you can see the Christmas ornament over there by the famous waterfall that has President Kennedy's face on it with his famous words. But what a busy day out there. Look at that line through the security gate, one of the longest I've ever seen in my over 5 years living on the Space Coast. But I haven't been out there between Christmas and New Year's, and nobody has in the last 2 years because of the pandemic. So talked to Nick Thomas out there, our astronaut wrangler. Got in line for the Universe Theater there, where they actually had stanchions put up for all of the big week out there. And that was something that I noticed, was they're very prepared for this week out there at the Kennedy Space Center Visitors Complex. Hope that you can come out there and enjoy what is, just unbelievable history, as well as the exhibits like Gateway, where they have these new interactive kind of high-tech rides that you take in a simulator. So, but out there today we saw Mr. Fred Gregory. There he is. He's going to be 81 years old January 7th, I'm sorry. Born in 41, so he'll be 81 January 7th. Born in Washington, D.C. And Marty, he gave quite a different talk than most astronauts do. He has 3 missions. 1 as a pilot and 2 as a commander, but he didn't even involve himself too much in that. He showed a few pictures of him in space and his crew going up, one of them, but didn't elaborate too much on the space experience. Instead, he wanted to talk about real space, our place in the solar system, our place in the galaxy. And oh yeah, he still thinks Pluto's a planet, by the way. And good for you, Fred Gregory. So do I. And one day you'll see a T-shirt, a Christmas gift to prove it, when we do a Stay Curious about the planets one day. So But Gregory just really enjoyed it a lot. He's every astronaut encounter out there is different. They take a different way. They can go through right their missions and what it's like to eat and go to the bathroom. Of course, they get that out of the way. But he did none of that. It was more. He didn't even talk too much about his feelings about being in space, except that it was beautiful and he enjoyed it. And then, of course, we go up for autographs. There's Nick Thomas, Nicholas Thomas, taking a photograph of some a dad and his son around Mr. Gregory there. They do such a good job out there with these events. Nick Thomas is such a pro, literally herding people through today to get their items signed and get a photograph made. And you betcha I got a photograph made with Mr. Gregory there. And he's a good friend of our museum friend, Bart Martindale. And Bart Martindale's an educator out there at the Space Center. And actually, Bart did a wonderful interview with Fred Gregory. You can find that on our archives on YouTube and also Facebook, where we are doing our 719th episode today, Marty, of Stay Curious, born out of the pandemic in March 2020. So a lot of people say, Mark, why don't you do it 3 days a week, 2 days a week? Space history is every day. And we don't want an opportunity to brag about some accomplishment or an astronaut birthday, but anyway, we hope that you enjoy it 5 days a week and tell your friends to stay curious with the American Space Museum. Well, as promised, we've got some birthdays. I'm going to put my birthday hat on here. Everybody loves that when I get my birthday mode on here, and we're going to wish a happy birthday. Like I said, behind me here is this gentleman. Nobody remembers the second human being to cross the Atlantic Ocean after Charles Lindbergh. Who was it? After Lucky Lindy did the solo flight, who did it afterwards? In fact, it was 5 years afterwards, and it was Amelia Earhart. You all know Amelia Earhart's name. Well, I guarantee you not many people know that Robert Stewart, shown right here, was the second man to go untethered after Bruce McCandless in 1984. And here is the birthday boy. Robert Stewart was born August 13th, 1942 in Washington, D.C., just like Mr. Gregory. He is the first active duty Army astronaut. Okay. Oh, yes, Gus Grissom was an Army astronaut. A couple others were Army astronauts, but they weren't active duty. And he was. And he had 2 early space flights, really pioneering the space shuttle in the early 80s. And then he was on the Manned Maneuvering Unit in 1984. And that was 51D, I believe. Let me get my crib. No, 41B. I'm sorry. 41B was the mission. And then he was on 51J in 1985. And 12 days in space. He was a Capcom on several of the astronaut STS-4 and 5. And is enjoying life, I am sure. Mr. Robert Stewart turning 80 today, December 28th. Born in Washington, D.C. And there is that famous picture of him all alone. What an image, even with the cloud cover there. It's just so startling. Human being in his own spaceship. The next astronaut we celebrate is Michael Scott Hopkins. He was born December 28th, 1968 in Lebanon, Missouri, and grew up on a farm in Richland, Missouri, okay? He was the former commander of SpaceX Dragon Crew 1, the first operational Dragon. Demo 2 was the first flight with the 2 astronauts. He was, let's see, I found some interesting things about Michael Hopkins here. Participated in 5 spacewalks, has spent 333 days in space on 2 expedition missions at the International Space Station. One was 3738 in 2013, and then 6465 in 2020 when he took the Crew Dragon up. So he has flown in the Crew Dragon and the Space Shuttle, two space vehicles. He's the first astronaut to officially be a Space Force astronaut. He transferred to the Space Force when he was on board Expedition 6465, and they actually had a ceremony and so forth. Though he is an active NASA astronaut, he's not one of the Artemis, the 9 women and 9 men that have been chosen to train for Artemis specifically. And everybody loves the cupola. All of our astronauts that have been on the space station just say that's where the astronauts gravitate, obviously, in their free time to look at the Earth. And here is Hopkins wearing a Fighting Illini jersey. He played defensive back for the University of Illinois. And he says to this day he still uses some of the lessons that were taught to him in football. And what would one of those lessons be? Well, one is be gritty. For example, he said, be gritty. When you're battling, when you're tired, when you're hurting, it takes grit to get through that. It's no different than being in the Air Force or here in NASA. You have to sometimes call on something from inside you to dig a little deeper, and that's the stuff that comes from my playing football. So, Fighting Illini, there you go. One of your great linebackers there, defensive back Michael Hopkins, who has spent over almost a whole year in space, 333 days. Happy 53rd birthday to you, Mike. And then we've got this gentleman, Hashidi Akihoto. All right, I can't pronounce his name, but I know they call him Hashidi, though that's his first name. This gentleman I actually got to meet. He has 3 missions, 340 days in space, 4 EVAs, and he's one of, I think, 5 people who have been on a shuttle, on a Russian Soyuz, and then climbed in a SpaceX Crew module and went to the space station. Hashidi is a very seasoned astronaut. He was born December 28th, 1968 in Tokyo, Japan. He's been in 3 different spaceships, like I said, and how cool is that? Launched for the 3rd time in 2021 aboard SpaceX Crew 2, and I think that was sort of in April. Well, he was a flight engineer, and then he became commander. He has joined JAXA in 1992, the Japanese Space Agency, and so when he was here he is. I had a picture made with him. How did that happen, you might all say, staying curious, as I'm bragging about some of my astronaut encounters today. But come on, move down here. The weather's fine today. That's why Kennedy Space Center was crammed, man. It's in the 70s. People have thawed out here, so to speak. So before I tell you about how I came about Hashidi at the Beachside Hotel in Cocoa Beach, we've got a question, Marty.
Yeah, I have the question. Mark, I thought you said he was a flight engineer and then a commander. He wasn't a pilot?
Correct. Hashidi, I don't think, was a pilot. On Discovery 124, second of 3 missions for him. No, he was appears to have been a with his EVAs and stuff never flew. Flight engineer, and then became commander. They don't have to be pilots to be command an expedition, apparently. Did you think that? Is that what your question was? Well, that's something we can look up. Maybe Dave Stange knows that up there, or Carlton probably knows. He's up from his nap watching Stay Curious today. Do you have to be a pilot to be a commander of the ISS? Now, what Marty says would make sense because, shoot, you got to fly the spaceship back, but you just make sure the guy that's to do that, or girl, is not in any of the trouble on that space station. It would precipitate that decision. So I am doing a stargaze like I do once a month around the first quarter moon at the Beachside Hotel in Cocoa Beach. And I'm just about done for the night. It's close to 10 o'clock, and I see a Japanese man and woman coming up to my telescope. And I kind of recognize the other lady because she's out of Washington, D.C., and I've talked to her before. The Japanese stay at the beachside hotel when they launched their astronauts to the space station. So this was in last April, and we were launching Wakata to the space station. Okay, it was like yeah, in April last year. I think they had a delay, and no, I take that back. It was September this year, September, and so the lady says, "Hi, how are you?" I said, "Just fine." I said, she goes, "We're from JAXA." And I go, "Yes, I remember you. You're out of Washington, aren't you, ma'am?" "Yes." And I said, "Well, I remember you when we launched astronaut Hashidi to the space station last April." And she says, "Yes, meet Mr. Hashidi," standing right there in front of me. Foot in the mouth, Mark, okay? Of course, I really didn't recognize him. I was more engaged talking to the woman there, and he says, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm going to put stars in your eyes and have a little moonshine here in my telescope." He laughed about that, and just a great guy. Got a picture of him over at the hotel's astronaut thing, which was stupid of me. I should have got him over by the map of Florida or something like that. He's got enough pictures in front of spacesuits, I'm sure. But what a really nice guy. Talked to him about Winston Scott because I knew that he trained with Winston, though he didn't fly with him. Dow was the Japanese astronaut who flew with Winston. So just a warm guy. And you know what? He said, I said, "You flew 3 spaceships. Which was the best?" He said, "The SpaceX Crew Dragon flew just like a sports car." And he said it was roomy and just very simple to fly, but he felt very confident in it. We were talking today with, and then there's another picture of Hashidi there. Get my ugly face off of there. What a nice guy. And you know, we were talking with Fred Gregory about flying uh, the space shuttle that he was a commander of, had over 2,000 different switches and buttons to push. And then Fred said that I believe he said there's only 30 switches in the Crew Dragon, and that he liked that. He said so. I didn't know at the time I was talking to Hashidi there, but what a great guy! Happy 53rd birthday to you, sir! I can't wait to see you again. It'll probably be next fall because that's when the next Japanese astronaut's going to go up on Crew 7, I think. We're up to Crew 5, and then Crew 6 will go in the spring, but doesn't have a Japanese astronaut on. So look forward to seeing you. Hope you're having a great birthday, Hashidi. And that's what they call them, by their first names instead of their last names. Notice that with other astronauts that trained with them. Well, where are we going now, Marty? We're gonna go to outer space. Imagine that for the rest of Stay Curious, because what we're gonna look at, this is at 6 o'clock tonight. Venus is starting to make an appearance in our evening sky, and will be dominating the sky here in a couple weeks, and then be visible through probably February. Mercury is right above Venus. Great opportunity to see the elusive first planet that only spends about a month above the horizon in the evening horizon twice a year, and then twice a year it's about a month above the morning horizon. So this is an opportunity to see what we call that to be a conjunction of Mercury with Venus there. We call it an apparition when planets are visible. Then you have Saturn and the moon. So Saturn will be easy to find as you drop down from the moon, and then Jupiter's above Saturn. And far to the left in this, rising above the eastern horizon, is the red Mars that we did a program on Stay Curious about tomorrow. Actually took boots on the ground to Mars to kind of get you a feel of that cold climate on Mars. And you know what, Marty? I forgot to mention that our friends in Michigan, like Dave Stange and Larry Pusker and Bill Whiting, they were actually colder Christmas Day than the surface of Mars was. All right, they were below zero, and Mars' surface warmed up to about 30 to 40 degrees for a few hours. So think about that, folks. Though it's always cold on Mars and not so much in Michigan. So we want you to get out, do a little stargazing from your backyard tonight. Marty sent me, as he usually does, a little suggestion for the program. And today, Marty, thank you for sending me this out of the newspaper Daily Digest, that on this date, December 28th, Italian astronomer Galileo Galilei discovered the planet Neptune, or he observed Neptune, but mistook it for a star. Neptune wasn't officially discovered until over 220 years later in 1846 by Johann Galilei. He was a group of astronomers, two mathematicians, and two observers that actually figured out that Uranus, which was discovered about 50 years before, wasn't where it was supposed to be in its orbit, and something had to be affecting it. And lo and behold, it was another giant gaseous planet that they named after the god of the oceans, Neptune. Well, let's look at Neptune a little bit, because I couldn't believe when Marty sent me this that Neptune, shown right there in my friend George Fleener's telescope, just a tiny little disk, though, that's bluish white, that Neptune is right beside the moon tonight. All right? So this is off of that program I talk about, Stellarium. It's your planetarium in your pocket, on your smartphone, or on your desk, on your computer or laptop. And where those red is, that shows you where Neptune is, to the right, just at 1 o'clock from the moon today. All right, you don't see a star in there because it's too faint to be shown, and I had to increase the brightness of the stars, and I didn't have time to do it because it's about 8th magnitude. In fact, all the data you ever want to know about Neptune is right there, and I'm looking at it. Rises at 11:30 in the afternoon. Looking up there, absolute magnitude is it's 7.91, the second line up there. So it's about 8th magnitude. Now, the naked eye from your backyard, you're going to be lucky to see 4th magnitude stars. 6th magnitude is the faintest we can see at a really dark spot. All right. But so if you have binoculars and you look at the moon and you go 1 o'clock, you might detect just a bluish star. That is Neptune, which is only 2 billion miles away. It takes light over 40 minutes to travel from Neptune to our eyes on Earth, all right? So it's a time machine always when we're looking up at the sky. So something interesting to entertain you from your backyard tonight, or go out and show how smart you are to your visiting friends out of town here this New Year's week. That Neptune is in the sky, visible, and of course it is technically the last planet of the solar system, the 8th planet, because the 9th planet, Pluto, that I still call a planet, has been demoted to dwarf planet. And why that happened was we either had to make it 5 other objects planets, because there's 4 other objects that are classified as dwarf planets, or create a new class of planets, which they did. So let's look a little bit about, get our Neptune on here, since it's in our night sky. And the only time that we saw Neptune was when Voyager 2 flew by it, around 1987, I think that was. Forgot to look that date up, but it's way back in the 20th century. No unmanned vehicles have gone close to Neptune. The Hubble telescope actually took this photograph of Neptune, so where you can see white clouds on it in bluish markings, and these are the satellites that are around Neptune. Of course, the arcs aren't there. That's just showing this in a dramatic way that they go around Neptune. Neptune's very strange, okay? Neptune has a bright blue color. All right, due to its great distance from the sun, this planet is not bright enough to be seen with the naked eye. You need a telescope. It's the 4th largest planet, okay, behind Jupiter, Saturn, and Uranus. It's just slightly smaller than Uranus. It's the twin of Uranus, like Venus is the twin of Earth in size, both about 8,000 miles across. Both Neptune and Uranus are about 30,000 miles across, about 4 times the size of the Earth. The planet has an extreme climate, which means the gaseous clouds going around are mostly methane to give it the blue color, and they whip around in the most powerful winds in our solar system, over 1,200 miles an hour. All right, named, like I said, for the Roman god of the sea. And now we've got some close-ups of Neptune's clouds and some of its moons. This is a close-up of its moon Triton. It's a giant moon that we call it has a cantaloupe skin. Neptune is in the background there, and yes, it has an oval dark spot like the red spot on Jupiter. We think it's a cyclonic storm going beneath the clouds that causes the dark pattern, and you see the white clouds around it whip around very fast around Jupiter's girth there. So, but what we're actually seeing here, the only close-up view of Triton, this moon, is incredibly there are active cryovolcanoes. Cryo being cold volcanoes. They are spewing cold material from inside of Triton is being going out and freezing instantly. And above my hand right there, where I'm pointing, kinda, you see those dark markings there? Those are shadows and debris coming off of those plumes from the volcanoes that Voyager 2 captured erupting as it flew by this moon, which is almost the size of Mercury. It's bigger than our own moon, and which is 2,000 miles across, and it's a little under 3,000 miles across. A giant moon. What is very interesting to astronomers when we look at this moon, you don't see many craters. So that means that the surface has been replenished and is fresh from the impacts of cosmic debris that's so common on the rocky and solid bodies of our solar system. Well, as we go inside of Jupiter and compress all of that weight of that atmosphere down on Jupiter, we find an icy layer of water, ammonia, and methane right beneath the cloud deck that might be a couple hundred miles thick. And then we have several thousand miles of this cloud deck there. And then what is there in this atmospheric pressure is so intense that they actually think diamonds could exist. Diamonds, Doug Forrest, there in Los Angeles, could exist on Neptune. We'd like to thank Mariana Crisset for watching. Dave Stange and his whole family's watching Stay Curious. So thank you, Dave. Cynthia Rossi's here on the Space Coast. Thank you, watching, dear. Steve Hammer has got some great suggestions for our top 10 of 2022 that Marty and myself and maybe Connie helping us. Friday we'll do that program. And we got Gary Gerald. Hi, Gary. Tom Usiak and Tom Celentano staying curious today. And those regulars that are not on there, Marty, I bet they're going to watch it later this evening on YouTube is where we'd like you to watch it. So the compression, the right amount of carbon and methane and all the ingredients on Neptune make it right to have actually crushed diamonds on this. Can you believe that? So of course we've got Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. All right. Either the Beatles or Lucille Ball in the Sky with Diamonds, okay? And I forgot the artist's name that I pulled this off of. Did I write her name down so we don't get sued? No, I didn't. So, but you can buy this for like only $20 or something on Etsy. So, yes, Neptune is quite an unusual planet, and you can see it in your night sky. Look at the moon tonight. Go at 1 o'clock. If you have binoculars, I guarantee you'll see it. You might not know that you're seeing it, but you will see it. All right, Stay Curious. So, well, I am covered Neptune. We've had a couple good three astronaut birthdays today. Talked about a wonderful astronaut, Mr. Fred Gregory. And then we have anything else to go over today at our Streamlabs?
Nope, we're good.
All right, we're good. Well, thank you, Marty. Thank you, Connie, for running the board today. And tomorrow we're going to talk. We've got, like I said, we've got moon water to talk about on Thursday, and Friday our top 10 events of 2022. So you know what we want. We want to see you in our museum here at the American Space Museum. We've had a lot of kids in the building today doing STEAM education with Darren Roberts, our wonderful education director's got a good mojo going on there with some good solid science that the kids are learning a simple way. And then we want the adults in here touring our museum. So hope to see you maybe over the weekend. We are going to be closed Saturday, New Year's Eve, and back open January 2nd to get off 2023. So until I see you in our museum to bridge the space between us, I'm Mark Marquette saying, look up, get you some moonshine. It's the only kind of moonshine that you can't get too much of. See you tomorrow.